Today is February 3rd, 2020. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with George Tabor in Ramona, Oklahoma, and you live in Tulsa.
That's correct.
Sir, where were you born?
Where?
Where?
In McAllister, Oklahoma.
And when's your birthday?
It's the 13th of October, 1945.
1945. Who is your father?
Thomas O. Tabor.
Okay. And your mother?
Velva, V-E-L-V-A, G. Tabor.
What was her maiden name?
Johnston.
Johnston.
Yeah, Johnston.
Okay. You go through school in McAllister?
No, I did not. No. My dad and mom moved from McAllister to Bartlesville in about 1950, give or take. Okay. And I went through elementary school, junior high, and high school in Bartlesville.
Okay. Why'd they move to Bartlesville?
Well, my dad was an Indian agent down in McAllister, but then he got a job with the General Adjustment Bureau and became an insurance adjuster, and that's his first duty station, so to speak.
Job with the
General Adjustment Bureau. They go out, and they're the guys that climb all over your roof after a storm to check for damage. Go look at your, well, in those days, go look at your car when it whacked into something. He spent a lot of time in Texas and Louisiana and some other places when the hurricanes came through and did a lot of damage, so stuff like that.
Go through college high?
Yes.
Graduated what year?
63.
63?
Mm-hmm.
You know Tom Todd?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
That's my brother.
Is it right? Yeah, I know Tommy.
He's in Broken Arrow.
Is he? You know, I off the subject, I belong to a group called the Geezers. Jerry's probably told you about them. And there's probably about 15 of us that graduated from college high, and we get together every other week and eat breakfast and solve the problems of the world.
Yes, yeah. Who was your favorite teacher?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to say Frank Robinson, band director.
Why?
He was stern, but he was fair, and he knew how to talk to the kids. And out of all of them, he was probably the one I was the most afraid of.
What'd you do for recreation in high school?
I guess it's okay to tell you now. Gosh, I don't know. We didn't do much. I was in Boy Scouts and Explorers, and so there were 4 or 5 of us that ran around together, and we go camping every time we got a chance. And of course, being in the band, we went to all the football games, and a couple of the guys were managers of the basketball team or played on the basketball team, so we'd go to basketball games, and then there were always other opportunities to get in trouble, usually about 18 miles north of Bartlesville over the Kansas line.
You mean Caney?
Yeah, Caney.
The Black Saddle?
Pete and Mary's Black Saddle.
Yeah.
That's it.
Did you climb the mound? You climbed the mound?
You know, I don't recall if I ever did. Probably.
How about Circle Mountain?
Oh, yeah, we went to Circle Mountain all the time.
What was up on Circle? What'd you do on Circle Mountain?
Walked around, hiked. We might have even gone out there and spent the night a couple of times. I don't remember. There was a Boy Scout camp out west of town going towards Pawhuska, and I don't even remember the name of it. But we would go out there even when the Boy Scouts weren't having stuff, and we'd go out there, and there's a little creek that flowed through the area, and we'd camp on the side of it and go skinny dipping and drinking beer and crazy stuff like that.
You go to Zesto's?
Probably. There's a lot of those places that aren't there anymore that I don't remember, but yeah, probably. I remember the A&W. I think it's called Adams Boulevard now. Is where we used to.
That was 7th Street.
Yeah, hang out there. I think it was a Pizza Hut, right when you're going into town on the left-hand side, and a little shopping center.
Yes.
Used to hang out there. Go to Murphy's Steakhouse every now and then because Murph was one of the guys that we graduated with.
Yep.
There was a go-kart track out east of town. I can't remember the name of it. We used to go out there and play go-karts, and yeah, we did a lot of stuff around Bartlesville.
You have a car in high school?
I didn't have my own car. My parents let me drive theirs. So I had the option of driving a 54 Ford convertible or a 57 or 58 Triumph TR3. I don't remember which. That's the one I took my driver's license test in.
What did you do after high school?
Well, I wanted to go into the Marine Corps. In fact, I had looked into the platoon leaders course, which is basically like ROTC. But Mom and Dad said, no, you're not doing that. You're going to college, and you're not going to have anything to do with the military. So I went to Oklahoma State in the fall of 1963 and became a cowboy.
What did you study at Oklahoma State?
Initially, I was a hotel and restaurant management person because I had one of the guys that graduated a year or two before we did. Graduated from OSU in that field and went into the Navy and spent all 4 years of his tour in the Navy at Guantanamo Bay, running the officers club and the officers bachelor officer quarters. And I said, well, that sounds like a good job. Can't get shot at too much doing that. So that was the plan. Well, plans change.
Yes.
I got into a fraternity at the first year there, and our pledge trainer had just gotten out of the Army, and he was in the 101st Airborne, and got me interested in jumping out of airplanes. And then I was in ROTC and Pershing Rifles the first year at OSU, and so that changed my direction from the Marine Corps over to the Army. Didn't get there very quick, but that was the direction I was headed in.
Yeah. When did you join the Army?
I joined the Army in 1967, November.
November 1967.
Yeah, I spent Thanksgiving Day in the reception center down at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
And where'd you go for your basic training?
Fort Polk.
Fort Polk.
Yep.
Tell me about Fort Polk.
Hated it. Hated it. I really didn't see much of Fort Polk except the training areas. I was fortunate, and because of my ROTC background, they made me the platoon guide or whatever it was in the platoon I was in. So I was kind of had a room to myself with the other 4 squad leaders, and we didn't get beat up as bad as the other privates did. But we didn't see much Fort Polk except for the barracks and the training areas. I got to go to the closest PX about maybe 2 or 3 times during our 8 weeks to pick up stuff for the other guys. But I think the first chance I got to get away from Polk was in December. They put us on Christmas break or Exodus, whatever they call it. And came back to Oklahoma City, actually, and got married. Yeah. That's when the wife and I got married. And I think we were off for about 2 weeks. And then when I took a bus back down to Fort Polk, and I had a couple of 3 hours before I'd be back on post, and I went downtown into Leesville. And my first thought when I hit that little town was, where in the heck am I? This is the country. I went into a bar on Main Street in Leesville, Louisiana, that had a dirt floor. And I'm going, what the heck kind of town is this? And then by the time I finally graduated from basic, let's see, January, either end of January, first part of February, I don't remember. The wife and my grandparents and parents came to town, and we stayed in a brand spanking new Holiday Inn, and I believe that was the first motel that had been built in that town. So I didn't think Leesville was very modern.
Yeah. Were you in Tigerland?
No, I didn't go to Tigerland.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Went through basic there, but I went to Fort Gordon for AIT.
Okay. What type of training did you have in basic?
Normal basic training. How do you wear a uniform, how to march, who to salute, who not to salute, rifle marksmanship, a little bit of first aid, map and compass work, camouflage, cover concealment, basic training type things that I think most kids get when they go through.
Okay. What's your most vivid memory of basic?
Gas chamber. Gas chamber was fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I had no problem with the gas chamber
Why was it
whatsoever.
fun?
I was giggling at the other guys. We had one kid in our platoon that was a little Hispanic guy that wasn't very manly. Don't take that the wrong way. He just wasn't very manly. And I remember him just squealing like a stuck pig and crawling around on the floor and running around and puking. And it was a humorous, not only him, everybody, we all had pretty much the same situation, but it was just a humorous time. And the only reason I say that is because I went on later in life to become a drill sergeant, and the gas chamber was always my favorite favorite training episode.
Basic lasted how long?
I think we were there for about 9 weeks.
Okay.
We had a 0 week, and then we had 8 weeks of training.
Okay. Then you went to Fort Gordon?
Fort Gordon, Georgia.
For AIT?
AIT.
What'd you do at Fort Gordon?
Well, it was airborne AIT. I was scheduled, at the time, I was scheduled to go to Special Forces. And at the time, I was supposed to be a combat engineer. And I went to Gordon, to airborne AIT. And it was an airborne infantry AIT. I was an 11 Charlie, which is a mortar guy. 81, 4 deuce, and 60 millimeter mortars. What they call us, indirect fire crewmen.
Okay.
So part of our training was all airborne oriented, learn how to put on a parachute, jump out of the airplane, all that kind of good stuff. And the rest of it was all infantry training, which was just a little bit more advanced than what we'd had at Fort Polk.
Okay. How did AIT compare to basic?
Oh, a lot easier. We were treated a little bit differently. Instead of having 2 drill sergeants per platoon, we only had 1 drill sergeant, and he was there more just to stand in the background and watch. Mm-hmm. We had all of our squad leaders and our platoon sergeant were all shake and bake NCOs from Fort Benning that had gone through that, I don't even know how long it was, say 90 days worth of learning how to be a non-commissioned officer. And then they were promoted to E5, and then some of them were promoted to E6, depending on how well they'd done in that course. So we had an E6 platoon sergeant and 4 E5 squad leaders. And they were just getting further trained in how to handle troops and stuff like that before they went off to, most of them went to Vietnam, but went off to do things after our training was over.
Now, what's your most vivid memory of AIT?
Well, I think the most memory I have of there was we were there when Martin Luther King got killed, and we had just finished our final field training exercise, so we got put on alert in case there were problems around the Augusta area. Mm-hmm. And my wife had moved up there, so I got off. I didn't get off in the evenings, but I got off on the weekends, so we had a little place off post, and so that she got scared during that time frame, and the company commander and his wife took her in, said, "Come to post if you can get out of there." And so that was kind of a spooky time, but okay. There were really no big problems, so we didn't have to go out and do anything okay. with civil unrest.
Yeah. So from Fort Gordon, where'd you go?
Fort Benning.
Fort Benning.
Fort Benning for jump school.
Tell me about jump school.
That was a memorable 4 weeks. We had a 0 week where we didn't do anything except pull details and start doing PT. And then we had the normal 3-week airborne school, ground week, tower week, and jump out airplanes week. And it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was physical, but it wasn't near as physical as I thought it would be. I didn't have any problems with it. As long as the black hats didn't get the number on your helmet, you stayed out of trouble most of the time. And
black hats?
Those were the instructors, okay. The airborne, Sergeant Airborne, most of them were called. They were the ones that trained us, and if they got your number, you were probably doing 5 times as many push-ups as anybody else. They didn't get my number until jump week, so I got over.
Tell me about your first jump.
The first jump was fun. Didn't have a clue what to expect. They said stand up, hook up, and get out the door. We all went, didn't think twice about it. It was the second jump where everybody started going, what the heck have I got myself into? But I sprained my ankle on the first jump, so I was kind of hobbling around and trying to keep everybody from seeing I was hurt. And so the rest of them were memorable just because I made good landings and didn't hurt myself anymore.
And you made how many jumps?
5.
5?
Yep.
Okay. So from jump school, where'd you go?
Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Yep.
How'd you travel to Vietnam?
Oh, geez. Left Oklahoma City and went to someplace outside of L.A., or not L.A., San Francisco. I don't recall where, to be real honest. And from there, we took a bus up to an airfield someplace outside of San Francisco.
Was it Travis?
Might have been Travis. And we got on a civilian airplane, and I guess it was a contract thing, and flew to, where did we fly into? Nha Trang?
When you're getting on the airplane, what were you thinking?
You know, I don't really recall. It was just a big adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in my mind, I was a very naive 22-year-old private and had a little bit more education than some of the other guys because I'd gone through 2.5 years of college. But it was just a big adventure. I mean, you know, I get to go to a foreign land. Woo-hoo, I've never been too far out of Oklahoma before. In fact, I think growing up, before I went to college, I'd been to Texas, Kansas, New Mexico, and Colorado. That was it. You know, basically the states right around Oklahoma. So to get to go to a foreign country was a big deal.
And you say you landed in Nha Trang?
I think we went to Nha Trang. It's wherever, it was close to wherever the LBJ jail was, Long Bend. Maybe Long Bend, that was it. Stayed there a couple of days and then got shipped out to On Cay, which was up in the Central Highlands. First calf was there before the herd got there. Still had their big calf patch painted up on the side of a mountain.
Hong Kong Mountain.
Yep. And when I first got there, the company that I was assigned to in the platoon, we were guarding bridges on the highway. So it was a fairly gentle introduction to war.
When you first got off the airplane, what was your reaction when you first landed in Vietnam?
It was hot and stinky. Sticky hot and stinky. So, and it was...
You were assigned to what unit?
I was assigned to 1st Battalion of 173rd Airborne Brigade.
Okay.
And I ultimately ended up in B Company.
Okay.
I know, I think their proper term was the 173rd Airborne Brigade separate. Lovingly referred to by us as the 173rd Airborne Brigade different. So, good unit.
Okay.
Good unit.
What was your job in the unit?
Initially, when I got there, I was a ammo bearer for a 81 millimeter mortar. We had, oh gosh, we didn't ever number more than 10 or 15 guys in a platoon. We never had enough people in the platoon to carry 2 guns when we went to the field. We only carried 1. If we stayed someplace more than 48 hours and they'd fly us in another gun, we'd set it up.
Now, what guns is this?
81 millimeter mortar.
Okay, 80, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we normally traveled with the headquarters section. We were normally in the middle of our logger sites. So we still had to get up in the middle of the night and pull guard duty and radio watch and all that kind of good stuff. But we weren't, you know, out on the perimeter on the edge of thing. We were probably a lot more protected than a lot of those guys were. But yeah, I started off as an ammo bearer, and then through my time there, I worked my way up to the assistant gunner, and then the gunner, and then the squad leader.
Now, what's a crew of an 81 millimeter?
It's a ammo bearer, assistant gunner, a gunner, squad leader, and then in the platoon, well, that's, let's say, 3 or 4 guys on a gun. And Then in the platoon, if you had a whole platoon, then there'd be 3 guns. So 3 times 4 basically is, what, 12 guys. And then we had a platoon headquarters that had a platoon sergeant, a platoon leader, our RTO, radio telephone operator, and our computer, the FDC guy, fire direction control.
Now, as an ammo bearer, how much ammunition did you carry?
Everybody in the platoon carried 2 rounds.
Okay.
And then everybody in the company carried 1 round.
Okay.
So that's how we had a good stock of ammo if we needed it. And then, like I said, if we ever stayed someplace over 48, 72 hours, then they'd fly in another gun and enough ammo for it to shoot. And then when we left there, then they'd just pick up all that stuff and take it back to the company area.
Now, just going out on patrol, did you go out on patrol?
We did not do a lot of patrolling.
Okay.
The line platoons, they'd go out and patrol. We'd have a gun set up and fire support for them if they needed it.
Now, did you go out, how did you go out and set the gun up? Were you flown out? Did you drive out or walk out?
There were times when we took helicopters out. There were times when we walked out. There were a couple of 3 times when we'd go and set up around an artillery site where there were already artillery pieces, usually 105s or 155s. And those places we usually got driven to.
Okay.
But we usually walked.
What's the range of an 81 millimeter?
Oh gosh, I couldn't even begin to tell you now. I'm going to say probably 4 or 5 clicks.
Okay.
So 4 or 5 kilometers.
Now, when you're out there with the friendly forces, where do you set up that gun?
Well, if we had a perimeter set up, we'd be in the middle of the perimeter.
Okay. Okay.
So, like I said, it was pretty safe for us.
Okay. Now, when you're overnight, what kind of position did you set up overnight?
Well, it depended on where we were. Sometimes we dug holes, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we could put up hooches, sometimes we didn't. Hooch, just a poncho strung between a couple of trees, just to keep the dew off more than anything else. Sometimes if we stayed someplace for a long time, we had what we considered elaborate little homes. We would take the empty ammo crates and fill them full of dirt and make walls, and we could make the top of our little house a little bit taller than normal. And most of us had air mattresses, and as long as they stayed up, you didn't have to sleep on the ground.
I didn't ask, when did you arrive in Vietnam?
I got to Vietnam around the 15th or 16th of June, 1968.
1968. Was Tet over when you
Yeah,
were
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Tet was around January, February
January,
timeframe.
Yeah, 68. Yeah, okay.
I kind of got to Vietnam after the herd had their big 3 or 4 big fights. 875 was in November of 67 when I was in basic training, and then I missed Tet because that was in January, February. I didn't get there till June, so I missed some of the big stuff, but we had our own share of fun.
Was Anke your base camp?
No, well, Anke was initially. Yeah, we never, gosh, I want to say our base camp really was the bridge that we were guarding. We didn't, I don't recall going back to Anke sleeping at all after we left, after we went through jungle school at Anke, and then they sent us out to our units. And we might have gone back to Anke to get paid or get a haircut or go to the doctor or whatever, but I don't recall ever sleeping at that base after we left. Excuse me. And I do remember we got flown from there. We went to LZ Uplift, which was on, I may have my highways separated, but I think Highway 13 is the one that went kind of east and west in Vietnam, and Highway 1 runs north and south. Well, LZ Uplift was up in the Central Highlands, and Highway 1 kind of split the camp in half.
Okay.
And so that's where they moved us to after we guarded the bridges on 13.
Now, where were these bridges you guarded?
They were just little bridges that went over streams or rivers or gorges or whatever, and we were just there to keep the bad guys from doing any damage to the bridge.
Is this around on K or where?
It was around on K,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Mhm.
Yeah. So, that's the first time I got introduced to a starlight scope, and I thought it was cool. And it really was, it wasn't bad duty. There, like I said, there were 10 or 12 of us on the bridge, so we had, we could split up guard duty throughout a 24-hour period where it wasn't that rough. We had old guys and kids and mama sons on bicycles that would deliver the local food if we wanted anything to eat, if you were that trustworthy. Mm-hmm. And they'd bring us donuts and sweet rolls and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was pretty good duty on the bridges. It didn't get nasty till after we moved up to LZ Uplift, and that's when we started doing a lot of jungle patrols. And
now, where is LZ Uplift?
like I said, it was up on Highway 1. It was in between Bong Song and Phuket Air Base.
Okay.
Bong Song was where our brigade headquarters finally moved, and I think one of the battalions, or maybe two of the battalions, were stationed there. It was a major post, kind of like On K was.
Yeah, okay.
Uplift was just a little split in the jungle, I think we had 2 battalions stationed there, but I don't really remember. The only reason I know that is because I heard guys talking about 3rd Battalion was there and 1st Battalion was there. And I think 2nd Battalion was at Bong Song, and I think that was LZ English, by the way, it was Bong Song. And I think 4th Battalion was someplace else, and I don't know where they were.
Did you go to LZ English?
We spent a lot of time at English. We'd fly in and out of there. We got stationed there once. They call it Palace Guard because we did the same thing there that we'd done at Uplift when we came in out of the field. You get clean clothes, get a shower, and drink a hot beer or two, maybe eat a steak, and then you pulled guard duty in the bunkers at night. We did the same thing at English, but we were kind of off during the daytime, and they had more recreational things to do at English than they did down at Uplift, because it was a major installation as far as they went in Vietnam. But I think we only got to English maybe 3 times while I was there.
Now, do you have VC or NVA around that area?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Okay. I know that they split the company up, and I don't know what the rest of the company was doing at one time or another, but they took us and we were guarding we were firing support for an artillery unit that had a base set up somewhere. And they called us back, came in, picked us up, flew us back to Uplift. We resupplied, and when we left, we took 2 guns with us instead of 1. They flew us into the side of a hill because apparently one of the companies was out on a combat patrol and they encountered a whole bunker complex, and it was determined that it was all NVA. And so they ran a damn near battalion plus combat patrol around that area, because we're laying on the side of this hill watching the jets come in, dropping napalm and 400 or 500 pound bombs and all that kind of stuff just over the crest of the hill. And then, war story. Okay, that night when the sun went down, company says, okay, we're going out on a company-sized combat patrol. We're going, okay, have fun. We'll, keep us informed, and we'll keep you in the gun sight, so to speak. Well, it probably wasn't too much longer after sundown than one of the guys talking to our squad leader says, "Hey, Stoney." He says, "What?" He says, "We haven't made a radio check in a while. Where's the radio? We need to check with the company." We didn't have a radio. For some reason, they had left and taken all the radios. And one of the only thing we could figure out was one of the we had a FO, forward observer, with each one of the platoons. And then we had a company FO with the company commander that was more of an artillery guy than a mortar guy. Well, they just all left and took all the radios, and they didn't leave us one. So we're sitting there going, oh, crap. And it was one of those perfect, it was a dark and stormy night, because it was a very dark and stormy night. And I want to say it was probably about, and we were all awake. Nobody went to sleep that night because we were all awake. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. From up top of the hill, we hear movement. And it was that typical, pity-pat, clink, clink, tinkle, tinkle, a pretty good-sized group of people coming down the hill, and which got our attention real quick. And so finally, after a while, we're going, what are you going to do, Stone King? You're the guy in charge, because I think I was only a Spec 4 then. And he's going, hey, who's up there? Well, everything stopped. He says, you better sound off or we're going to fire you up. Nobody said anything. And then a few minutes later, here they start coming back down the hill again. We're going, okay, Stoney, what are we going to do? And he said, hey, if you don't say something, we're going to fire you up. Nothing, but the path separated. It went on both sides of us. It went around us and kept going right down the hill. And after a bit, somebody said, what do you think we ought to do? He says, who's got a grenade? And I don't remember who it was. Somebody said, I got one. He says, throw it. So they chunked the grenade down the hill. It went boom. And then we never did hear anything else. Whoever it was didn't want to talk to us, and they kept going. And then just about sunup, it's just light enough where you could barely see, we heard this guy at the top of the hill going, Stoney! He's going, what? He said, it's so-and-so. I couldn't remember who it was. He said, it's Sergeant so-and-so. He said, okay. And he said, where's the gooks? And he said, they're all around us. And this guy came running down the hill, this lickety-split, jumped in the first hole he saw, and it was the sump. And there was a big puff of smoke and fire and sparks, and he didn't like that, so he jumped out of that and came over to another hole, and he said, we heard all this booming and yelling and stuff, and we couldn't figure out what's going on. And so we told him, he said, why didn't you call us? Because you guys took all the radios. We didn't have any way to call you. Well, he stayed with us for a little bit, and then the rest of the company came back later on. We all had a big giggle about it later. But the line doggies went out and checked the perimeter, and there was a path down the hill and a path that went all the way around us, and then another single path going down the hill. And we never did find out who that was that night. But they didn't want to have anything to do with us anyway, thank goodness. But that's my one big war story from Vietnam.
Where was that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I would say it was probably someplace in the Tiger Mountains, but that's the best I can tell you. Back in those days, I was a dumb private. I just went where people told me to and did what I was told to do. And I started paying a little bit more attention towards the end of my tour when I made E5. But I never had a map, so, I was just one of those guys following the guy in front of me going down the road.
Now, were you a gunner on the 81 millimeter?
I was a ammo bearer first, then I was assistant gunner, then I became the gunner, and then I became the squad leader right before I left.
What does a gunner do?
The gunner manipulates the sight on the mortar, and then there's an elevation crank and a I don't remember now what they call it. But anyway, it moves the gun back and forth. So the gunner points the gun in the direction that it's supposed to go and makes sure it's up and level and ready to fire.
What does the assistant gunner do?
The assistant gunner moves the gun around if it has to be moved physically, okay. And the assistant gunner drops the round down the tube.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the ammo bearers are the ones that prepare the rounds to get shot.
Okay. Do you just have one round, or do you have different rounds in the mortar?
We had high explosive round. We had rounds that had delayed fuses, so we could set time on a fuse, so it would either be an air burst or it might hit the ground and burrow in a little bit before it went off. We had white phosphorus rounds, Willie Pete's. Those were fun. And then we had illumination rounds that would, parachute with a flare under it that we could shoot illumination.
Okay.
So, pretty good for us anyway. Uh-oh.
The Cowboys are coming.
Don't know who that was.
Did you work at the Mountain Yards?
Did not.
Okay.
No, we worked with what do we call them? Rough puffs. I think they were like Vietnamese police on occasion. Every now and then we would get some Chu Hois come in. Those were former VC or NVA that decided they wanted to come over to our side and had gotten fairly well indoctrinated and were somewhat trustworthy. We worked with those guys, but no, never worked with any of the mountain folks.
Okay. Were you there during the monsoons?
Oh, God, yes.
What are the monsoons?
Oh, more water than you could ever want. Yeah, I know we were out, gosh, I want to say that was probably the one time that we were out for maybe about 45 days instead of 30. But it was either too icky for the helicopters to fly, or there was no place for them to land and offload stuff. We ran out of food, we ran out of this. The only thing we didn't run out of was water. I was a smoker back in those days, and it got so bad that we were rolling cherry blend pipe tobacco in C-ration toilet paper and smoking it. It was tough times. I remember when the weather cleared enough for them to get to us, it was too muddy for the choppers to land, so they just hovered about 50 feet off and dumped everything out, and everything just, cans of water, ammo, C-rations, the whole 9 yards. It was just dumped out into a big mud hole, pretty much.
Did you have any contact with the local people when you were out?
Nothing more than moving through villages and clearing hooches and stuff like that to make sure somebody wasn't hiding or they weren't hiding stuff in the hooches. Really not too much. Around LZ Uplift, we were probably a little bit more friendly with the villagers in a little ville that was outside the gate, because a lot of those people worked on the post. We had barbers and folks that worked in the mess hall, and the little kids that come around selling cans of Coke and stuff like that. So that was about it.
Okay. How could you tell the VC from the local people?
Couldn't, unless they were shooting at you. That's it. That's the only way you're going to know. Yeah. No, you couldn't tell the difference. Everybody over there was dressed pretty much the same. You hear all this stuff about black pajamas and the conical hats. They didn't all wear black pajamas, but they all pretty much wore the same loose-fitting style of clothing with that hat, and we called them Ho Chi Minh sandals, but like flip-flops. So, yeah, that was pretty much it. You couldn't tell the good guys from the bad guys. And you never knew it might have been a good guy during the daytime, but at nighttime they went out and became the bad guy, so you just didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Go through rice paddies?
Oh, yeah, a few of them.
Well,
no fun.
Tell me about going through a rice. How do you go through a rice paddy?
As quickly as possible. Most of the time you were in mud, which was pretty much water buffalo, fertilizer, ankle deep stuff. I saw guys that would get in and get stuck, and they'd pull their foot out of their boot. It was so icky and gicky. Yeah, well, and then of course you didn't want to walk on the dikes because you didn't know whether they were going to be booby trapped or not. So we usually just went them, but we spent most of our time in the jungle. We didn't cross too many rice paddies. We were out in the jungle most of the time.
Come across any booby traps?
Oh yeah.
What kind?
Well, we came across the ones that you see in the movies that are, something that's strung up in a tree that if you trip it, it's a big log that's going to fall down and whack you, or a bunch of spiky thingies. We ran across those. We ran across punji pits with the deep hole with the bamboo sticking up. Ran across a lot of booby-trapped hand grenades and artillery rounds and things like that.
What do you do with them?
We didn't do anything with them. We either marked them so we went around them, or somebody called EOD and they came up and took them apart,
Okay.
for the most part, anyway. I know one time I got hit was with a booby-trapped 105 round, and we were on a battalion sweep from Highway 1 to the South China Sea. So the company was online, or the battalion was online, and our platoon got a little bit behind, and we went through a hedgerow that had an opening in it about that wide, and the guy that went through right in front of me tripped it. And the only thing I noticed was there was smoke coming up from the ground. So I hollered booby trap and took off, and it went boom, and it killed 2 people and wounded probably about 4 or 5. So, yeah, we lost our fire direction controller, and we lost a new guy that was ammo bearer. Our RTO was hurt pretty bad, but he came back. You know, he went to hospital, came back a few months later. Our platoon sergeant got hit, and I never saw him again. And the line doggy that was way back got hit by a piece of shrapnel, and I don't know whether he came back or not.
Line doggy.
11 Bravo, you know,
Okay.
one of the grunts.
Okay, okay.
We were grunts, but that's what we call them.
Yeah.
You know, line doggies got hurt.
Where did that happen?
Oh, it was someplace
On Highway 1?
off of Highway 1, yeah, going towards the South China Sea.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not a good day. The kid that tripped it, his whole left side was just shredded. He was hamburger. And we never saw him again either. He lived, but we never saw him again. I don't know what happened to him. And it was all over. When everything was all over, I had a 45 and my shirt was unbuttoned and I smoked. So I reached in my pocket to get a cigarette out, and I stuck my finger through a hole in my shirt. I'm going, that wasn't there a few minutes ago. And so then I'm feeling around, and I felt a little tear in the back pocket of my fatigue pants. So I pulled my billfold out, which was just a lerp bag, you know what lerps are, that was emptied, and my billfold had fallen apart, and I just stuffed all my billfold trash in that thing, and it was all taped up. Well, I saw a hole in that, so I pulled everything out and started going through it. And there was a piece of shrapnel in there about that long, about that big. And the thing that actually stopped it was my parents' Conoco credit card that I had neglected to give back to them when I left to go over there off of leave. And so I went over, and, you know, it's one of those, by then I'm going, oh, shit. So Doc. Well, Doc came over, and I said, I think I got hit. He said, what do you mean you think? And I said, well, I pulled this out of my billfold. And he said, well, let me see. So I dropped my drawers, and just right below my cheek on my right-hand side, there was a being, almost like a rug burn. And he said, yeah. He threw some Mercure cone on it or whatever, and threw a Band-Aid on it, and filled out a tag, and said, here, get on the next chopper and go back and get a tetanus shot, and yada, yada, yada. Well, the next chopper had the bodies on it, and I said, no, I'm good. So I stayed out, and that was the end of it. I kept that piece of shrapnel forever and ever and ever, and then it got lost somewhere or another. So, anyway, just a story.
How long were you in Vietnam?
364 days. I came over basically around Father's Day in '68 and left around Father's Day in '69.
What's your best memory of Vietnam?
I think just the friendships that we made, the brotherhood that we had. You know, in the evenings when we weren't doing stuff, we'd sit around the mortar pit and tell tales and sing songs, and, you know, until we had to get quiet. But just the brotherhood that we had with all those guys. I know when I went on R&R to Hawaii, I found a guy that was doing airbrush T-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff like that. So I had him airbrush a sweatshirt for all the guys in the platoon. I got a picture somewhere at home, all of us wearing those goofy things. So yeah, it's just those guys, and I haven't managed to keep up with all of them, but I've managed to keep up with maybe 3 or 4 since then. And one guy, we went through basic training at the same time, but we were in different companies. Then we went through AIT together, went through jump school together, we went all the way through Vietnam together. After Vietnam, we both went to Germany, and he was in one company, I was in a different company. And then we left there, went back to Fort Bragg, and he was in the 508th, and I was in the 325. So I kept up with him for a long time after Vietnam. And then when I left Fort Bragg in 77, I lost track of him, haven't been able to find him since, so I don't know what happened to him. One of the other guys that was in my platoon, we went through basic AIT jump school together in Vietnam together. Didn't see him after Vietnam for probably, 69 to 1981, however long that is. And I ran into him at Fort Bragg. I was going through phase 2 of Special Forces training, and he was just getting ready to start phase 1. And then I ran into him again several years later. He was an ROTC instructor, and I was an ROTC instructor, and we got together up at Fort Lewis, Washington during ROTC summer camp. So, and then when we both retired from the Army, I was a junior ROTC instructor for a while, and so was he down in Texas. But he's passed away since then. So, and that's about it. I haven't been able to keep up. I haven't been able to find anybody else. It's been really strange because I'm a member of the 173rd Association, and I was a member for a short while of, Together We Served as a veterans organization, and I never have been able to find any of those guys. They've all just kind of disappeared and fallen off the earth. I don't know where they went.
What's your worst memory of Vietnam?
Probably that one day when we had guys got killed, because we lost people in the company while I was over there in firefights or booby traps or whatever, but I didn't really know them well because, all the line doggies were on the perimeter and we were in the middle. We just didn't really socialize that much. I knew some of the guys that were out there because they were guys I went through jump school with in AIT, but we just didn't hang out together. It was one of those, you kind of just hung out like the squad guys hung out with their squad. Maybe some of the guys in a platoon hung out with each other. But we just didn't socialize that much with everybody else. So when somebody else got killed, I felt bad about it, but it wasn't really personal.
Yeah.
Well, when we lost those 2 guys out of the platoon, that was personal.
Yeah.
And I know every now and then I'm still in contact with Funkston's family because can't remember whether it was his sister or a cousin contacted me, probably 10, 15 years ago, and wanted to hear the story from somebody who was there. So we exchanged Christmas cards every now and then, and every time I get to DC and go to the wall, or every time one of those traveling walls come through, I always go look for his name and the other guy's name on the wall.
Were you in firefights?
Oh yeah.
What is a firefight?
Something that's extremely terrifying. Bullets whizzing by, hand grenades being thrown, people screaming and yelling. Sometimes our guys get shot, most of the times their guys got shot. It was exhilarating, in a matter of speaking, exciting, definitely get your heart pumping. And after it was all over and you're okay, then it was exciting and wow, that was kind of cool.
What do you do during a firefight?
Actually, where we were located, normally the company moved in a single file. So we were usually in the middle of the file. We didn't really do a heck of a lot, to be honest. I remember 1 or 2 times, not more than 2 times, when they called for the mortars to fire support. So we kind of shimmied around and crawled around till we could find a wide spot in the road to set the gun up. And then we got ready and got the gun set up, cut some charges, and once or twice we fired a couple of rounds in the direction that they told us to, and most of the time we just sat there and waited, for somebody to tell us what to do. I remember a couple of times, or at least one time, They said, we need some more firepower up here, so I'm low crawling with my M16 to get to the front to help shoot at somebody, but by the time I got up there, it was all over with, so. That's one of those things where you want to unbutton your shirt to get closer to the ground.
Now, when you're carrying the mortar, you have the plate, the tube,
And bipod,
and bipod.
yeah,
And how many men did it take to carry all this?
3.
3.
One guy carried the base plate, one guy carried the tube, one guy carried the bipod, and then the squad leader carried the sight.
Okay.
And the FDC guys, the fire direction control guys, it was usually the chief computer, and I don't remember whether he had an assistant or not, but maybe they carried the whiz wheel, the thing that they used to plot all the rounds on, and they carried the aiming stakes.
Okay. Who identifies your targets?
The FOs, or whoever's calling in a fire mission. Sometimes it's squad leader, might be the company commander. Normally it was a forward observer.
You ever serve as a forward observer?
I did for a short while I was in the 82nd, a very short while. In fact, I even had an artillery forward observer secondary MOS for a while.
Okay.
But I never did it actually.
Okay. Now, you in the 82nd after Vietnam?
After Germany, actually.
After Germany, okay.
Yeah, after Vietnam, I went to Germany and spent a little over 4 years with the 509th. We were first brigade of the 8th Infantry Division.
Okay.
We were-
Tell me about coming home from Vietnam.
That was fun. To be honest, we were happy to get away from there. Normal thing, wheels up on the airplane, leaving. Everybody hoo-hawed and clapped and cheered, and pretty uneventful flight. We stopped, I want to say we either stopped in Okinawa or Japan or someplace and refueled. It was another contract flight, with stewardesses and all that kind of good stuff. And then we flew into SeaTac, went to Fort Lewis, Washington. Didn't even stay there 24 hours. We out processed, got paid, got a new uniform with all our crap sewed on it, and headed to the house. I didn't have any problems coming home like a lot of guys did. I think we were fortunate to fly in up in the Pacific Northwest instead of down in Southern California. I think there was 4 of us going to the airport at the same time. We hailed a taxi outside the front gate of Fort Lewis, and guy picked us up and said, "Where are you going?" The airport. We said, "Okay." He says, "I got to make one stop before we get there. Is that fine?" We said, "Fine." He pulled into like a convenience store or 7-Eleven or something, came back out with a 6-pack and said, "Welcome home." And when we got to CPAC, 2 of us were going one way and the other guys were going another way. And we were flying military standby. And when we went up to the ticket office, we turned our tickets in, and the lady looked at us and said, "Are you coming back from Vietnam?" We said, "Yes, ma'am." And she traded us those for first class. So we flew first class from Seattle to Denver. And that was a pretty liquid journey. The stewardesses took care of us. And then I think I had about an hour, 2-hour layover in Denver and caught a flight to Oklahoma City. And when I got to Oklahoma City, the stews held everybody on the airplane and let me off first. Because that was back in the day where you had to get off out in the middle of the tarmac, and then walk to the terminal. So she says, "I want your folks to know you're home." So she kept everybody on the plane until I got off. That was kind of cool. But no, I had a good time. I had a good coming home.
So when did you go to Germany?
Oh, shortly thereafter. My wife was pregnant thanks to R&R in Hawaii, and I wanted to stay home because my kid wasn't due till, see, this was mid-June. I don't think Tommy was due until August or September, but he came while I was home. So at least I got to be here for him to be born. And then I tried to stay, and of course the Army told me, "No, you're going to Germany." So I got to Germany, and August of '69. And we had a good tour in Germany. I volunteered 3 times to go back to Vietnam because I didn't, when you go from wartime combat to garrison duty, there's a big difference. A lot of spit and polish and shine the brass and get a haircut and shave, and you can't shoot him because he pissed you off and blah, 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 blah. So I tried to get back to Vietnam 2 or 3 times and they wouldn't let me go. But we had a good tour in Germany. I was dumb enough to raise my hand and volunteer, and I got stuck in a maintenance platoon as the prescribed load list NCO. So I was ordering all the repair parts for the battalion.
What unit were you assigned?
I was initially I was in headquarters company, 2nd of the 509th.
And you were based where?
In Mainz, Germany.
Mainz.
Robert E. Lee Barracks. I thought that was interesting. And
what was the reaction of the German people to you?
oh, no problems. We had a good time with good rapport with the Germans. We didn't do a lot of things with Americans. We didn't stay on post and do stuff. We didn't go to a lot of American activities. But most of the soldiers that I knew were married to Germans. So we did German stuff. We went to German beer fests and wine fests and traveled around Germany and took in the sights. My wife worked for an Alfa Romero dealership. The owner was a German, and she helped do insurance and car titles and all that kind of good stuff. So, we hung out with him and did stuff with him and his family. So Germany was a good tour.
You were Fasching and Mainz?
Oh, Fasching. Oh, we love Fasching. We love Fasching. After the first one, I learned to take a 3-day leave for the next ones. Yeah, we enjoyed Fasching.
No, that's the same time. That's actually Mardi Gras, isn't it?
That's Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, those were good times. Yeah, very good times. Enjoyed it.
You were in Germany how long?
A little over 4 years.
4 years.
Yep. I was, in fact, I was with the 09 up until sometime in 73, and they deactivated the unit and then sent them to Vicenza, Italy. And then they reactivated the 1st Battalion in Vicenza, and they wanted to know if I wanted to go to Italy. And I said, well, how long a tour is that? And they said, well, it's another 3 years. And I said, no, I think I'd rather go home. So I became a leg for about 3 weeks.
A leg?
Non-airborne person. For about 3 weeks, but that whole time I was out processing and getting ready to leave, so it didn't make. To be honest, I can't even tell you what the unit was.
Okay.
I don't have any memory at all of what unit I was assigned to while I was. It was in the same caserne, the same barracks at Robert E. Lee Barracks, but it was a non-airborne infantry unit. I don't remember what it was.
Now, when did you join the Special Forces?
Oh, I didn't get into the SF until 1980.
Why did you go to Special Forces?
Well, I enlisted originally in '67 to go to SF. And when I got to jump school, I think it was during the 2nd week of jump school, and they had the SF orientation. They called all these names off, and mine wasn't on the list, so I started asking questions. I said, what's going on? And they said, oh, you can't go to SF right now because you don't have a security clearance. And I'm going, nobody told me anything about that, It's like, of course, I'm a dumbass private, and I'm going, I can go get one. It's, no, you just don't go get one, okay? So, but I volunteered for Special Forces again when I left Vietnam. No requirement for grade or MOS. I volunteered for Special Forces when I left Germany. No requirement for grade or MOS. I volunteered for Special Forces when I was told I was leaving the 82nd. No requirement for grade or MOS.
Now, when were you in the 82nd?
I was in the 82nd from late 73 through January 77.
And that was in the States?
Yeah, in Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg, okay.
Yep.
Now, was that after Germany?
Yeah, after Germany.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so when long story longer, when I left Bragg, they sent me to be a drill sergeant. So I was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood for drill sergeant school, and then maybe about a year and a half, and then I got moved to Fort Bragg, or not Bragg, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I was at Fort Sill for 2 or 3 years. Well, when I got ready to leave Sill, I was on orders to go back to Germany, and I was reading the Army magazine, if you remember those. I don't know whether they still do them or not. Well, if you remember, in the back of an Army magazine, there was at least one page that was full of how would you like to go to this post? Does anybody want to trade from this post to this post? You know, blah, 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 blah. Well, there was an article there that said Special Forces was looking for E7, Sergeant First Class, 11 Charlies. That was me. So I finally said, gotcha. So I volunteered. I'd already passed all the SF battery tests and all that kind of good stuff. The only thing I had to do was put in, what did they call them, a 4187? I think so. Well, anyway, one of those disposition forms, okay? And I had to take another swim test, and I sent all that stuff in and got accepted, and then I left Fort Sill in 31st of October 1980 and went to Fort Bragg. And then I started the first phase of Special Forces qualification course in January of 81. And then when I completed that, I got assigned to 10th Special Forces Group up at Fort Devens, Mass. So, and then,
Tell me about your Special Forces training.
what a hoot. I never had more fun in my entire time in the Army, because we pretty much got to do what we wanted to do. We trained in the areas that we wanted to train in. We didn't train in the areas that we didn't think we needed training in. We got to go to a lot. I probably took 2 trips to Europe a year on different training exercises. Yeah, I started off as the heavy weapons NCO on a A team, and worked my way up to I was the intel sergeant for a while, and then when I left, I was the operations sergeant, or the team sergeant for a SF team.
Now, what are heavy weapons?
Heavy weapons for SF are mortars and recoilless rifles.
Okay.
And the light weapons guys is all, pistols, rifles, machine guns, submachine guns.
Okay.
So there's 12 guys on a SF team, 2 people in each discipline. So there's a heavy weapons guy and a light weapons guy. There's a senior medic and a junior medic, a senior commo guy and a junior commo guy, a senior engineer and a junior engineer, the team sergeant, the intel sergeant, the team executive officer, and then team leader, which is normally a captain. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of fun. I did that from basically October of 80 through April of 1990 when I retired.
Okay. Now, where did you said you're an ROTC instructor?
Yep.
Where?
Cal Poly University in Pomona, California. I was the senior enlisted guy at this school. I taught, my little niche in life there was I was the map reading and compass guy. I was in charge of PT, physical training, and just NCO stuff with the cadets. Mm-hmm. I was in charge when we had what they call labs, but was really, when they had labs, that's when everybody wore their uniform. We had inspections, or they did marching or drills and stuff like that. I was also working with the recreation department at the university, and I taught wilderness survival and winter camping with those guys. So I wasn't a university employee. I was just doing that for shits and grins.
And you said you're in Texas?
No, Southern California.
You mentioned ROTC, and you didn't go to Texas, though.
No, that was that other guy that I knew. That he was a
okay.
junior ROTC instructor down in Texas.
Now, what does Special Forces do?
Special Forces has several different missions. Mm-hmm. Their main mission when I was in, was Foreign internal defense, which means we are invited to go to some country, someplace, and work with their military and to train them in order to be able to defend their country better. For example, when we went to Lebanon, we worked with the Lebanese army, and which we thought was interesting because they've been fighting a war for I don't know how many years already. Most of their battalions that we trained probably had multiple years of combat experience. But we tried to get them out of the dark ages into the 21st century, so to speak, when it came to that. So we had two different training teams while we were in Lebanon. We had a basic training team that did what you would expect when you hear the word basic. They taught those guys how to march. They taught them how to shoot better. They taught them how to wear a uniform, who to salute, who not to salute, basic first aid, yada, yada, yada. Then I had the advanced training guys. We were training platoons, companies, and battalions in mechanized infantry stuff. And we also did crew served weapons with mortars and 106 recoilless rifles, 50 caliber machine guns, and things like that. So we took them from their little basic training unit where it was really individual kind of training and started putting them together as a unit.
We're in Lebanon.
We were in Beirut for part of the time. The individual training guys, basic training was out close to the airport, so they pretty much got shot at every day, one way or another. We were up in the mountains northeast of Beirut. We didn't get the only people we had problems with were the French and the Israelis when we were running around up there. But so we didn't have as many problems with terrorists, for lack of a better word. There's a book out called The Root, R-O-O-T, that was written by a guy that never stepped one foot in Beirut. They wrote a book about it based on stories that he collected from Marines that were there. And there was a large Marine presence at the Beirut airport, and then there were Marine guards at the embassy, et cetera.
Marine barracks that.
We were there when the Marine barracks was blown.
What happened?
Well, my opinion, too much diplomacy, not enough security. We discovered that when we first got there. Anyway, the Marines were not allowed to have a loaded weapon. They could have loaded magazines in their magazine pouches, but they could not load their weapon. And that's what got all those guys killed, was there was a vehicle packed full of explosives that came charging across a fairly open area, and the guys just couldn't get their weapons loaded quick enough to put enough rounds on target to stop the truck before it went into that building and blew it up. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in that building. It was, that's where we got all our mail, all our medical supplies, all our field rations, any other kind of equipment that we needed to do our training. That's where we got all of our stuff. That's where most of the Marines stayed that we worked with, because every time we'd get a chance, we'd go grab a Marine platoon and say, hey, come with us, let's go to the country and train somebody. And so we had Marine 106 recoilless rifle teams, we had red-eye missile guys, we had mortar guys, we had guys that did 50 caliber machines. So every time we got a chance, we'd take those guys out with us so they could go out and do some training with the Lebanese army and get away from the bullseye. That's what we call the airport, was the bullseye. And we used to giggle at them because we did most of our traveling in either embassy cars or rental cars. We'd rent little Toyotas and Hondas and crap and drive around. And after we'd been there for about, maybe, let's see, we got there before the 4th of July. So I'm going to say we got there in June sometime, and probably by August, we'd had enough incidents that we said we need to be better armed because we had a pistol, 9mm pistol. That's all they gave us. So they finally gave us FNFALs, 7.62 rifles, Belgium-made, good rifle. Except they're about that long. They're like an M14, pretty much. Try to get one of those out of a rental Honda. It's fun. And we'd go out to the Marine Corps barracks, and they always had some little Lance Corporal on the gate. He'd stop us, and we'd have to show him our ID cards. And he'd say, I have to inspect your car. And we'd go ahead. And he'd get his little mirror out and check for bombs and all that kind of stuff. And he'd look in the trunk, and they only gave us like 3 or 4 magazines, but we had several hundred rounds. So we carried those around in like a 10-gallon garbage bag in the trunk of the car. And he, you shouldn't really be carrying ammo around like that. I'm going, son, where's your ammo? Well, I've got a magazine. Where is it? Well, it's in my ammo pouch. And I said, what are you going to do if somebody pulls up to your front gate that means you harm? I said, don't tell me how to carry my ammo, okay? But, yeah. No, that was one of the times where, other than Vietnam, when we were actually in combat situations, that was the one, Beirut was the one time when I was actually in a unit that was doing what we were trained to do. And we stayed in a hotel right on the Mediterranean. Unfortunately, it was on the west side of Beirut, which was not a good place to be. We were probably 3/4 of a block away from the American embassy. They got blown up over there. And it was blown while our first MTT was over there. I was in the second one.
MTT?
Mobile Training Team.
Okay.
I was in the second MTT. So those guys that we took over from were there when the American embassy got blown, and had to go down there and did a lot of medical work and recovery and all that kind of good stuff. So they didn't have a very good time.
What about the local people in Lebanon? What was their reaction to you?
No problem, really. Lebanon was almost like Vietnam. You didn't know who the bad guys were, except for the ones that were in a uniform of some kind or another. That was one of the biggest problems. Is they had checkpoints set up all over the place. You pull up to a checkpoint half a block from the hotel one day, and it's run by guys who are your friends. 2 days later, you pull up to the same checkpoint, and it's run by guys that don't like you at all. But we didn't really have too many problems with those folks. There was one incident I want to say it was in October, where we got stuck in a hotel for a few days because we kept catching sniper rounds. And there was kind of a little running gun battle going on one day. And one of the local gangs decided that they wanted to come in and wipe out the Lebanese platoon that was guarding the hotel for us. We did our internal guard stuff, but they had the outside of the hotel. And we're going, no, we're not going to let you do that. Well, we don't want to hurt any Americans, so you guys need to leave. And we're going, well, we're not going to leave, so do what you got to do. Well, that got into the diplomatic side of the house somehow or another. So the ambassador decided to pull part of us out of there. So at some time or another in the late evening, half of us went out and got into embassy cars and went to the embassy. And it was interesting that they were shooting at us with RPGs all the way there. They just didn't do a very good job of hitting anybody. But we stayed at the embassy for maybe a day and a half, and then everything went back to normal, and we went back to the hotel. But they did move us from there then, and we moved to up north of Beirut to a town called Juni. We had a hotel there, but we started spending most of our time up at our camp up in the hills. So we didn't have to worry about the troubles.
Did you camp have a name up in the hills?
No.
Okay.
No. It was just a flat spot up in the hills where we had about 3 or 4 GP medium tents set up with cots. And
what unit were you in assigned to over there?
that was, let's see, I was in, I was in our 2nd Battalion in a 10th Special Forces Group, and I want to say I was in C Company. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's a shame I don't remember that. I'll tell you my team numbers. When I first got there, I was on ODA 235.
Now, what is the team? Is it
That's
team?
the 12-man team, the A detachment that I was talking about with the 12 guys.
Okay.
And then I left. I was at Fort Evans for a year. Then I left and went to Presidio, Monterey, to the Defense Language Institute, and learned how to speak German. And then I went back to Fort Evans, and then I got put on ODA 234, which was across the hall from my first team, and stayed on that team until I left. And the team names changed. I don't know why they did that, but they changed the numbering system. So we went from 234 to 063. So I was a team sergeant at 063 when I left Evans and went to ROTC. So I didn't want to go. That was a wife-driven.
And you retired when?
Retired in April of 1990. In fact, I hope it wasn't what do they call it, a foreshadowing of later events in my life, because I retired on April Fool's Day of 1990.
Yeah. What have you done since you retired?
Well, when I retired, it just so happened that the guy that lives across the street from us was looking for somebody to go to work for him. So I went to work for the Oklahoma Safety Equipment Company, which is based in Broken Arrow. And we manufactured high-pressure relief systems and components. The best way to explain it is if you know what a hubcap looks like, just a regular old round hubcap, we could build those things so that they would blow up at a certain pounds per inch pressure. And they used them, for example, in the big oil tanks that you see around. There'll be one of those things down at the bottom of that tank with a long pipe going over to another tank. And if the pressure ever gets too big in that tank where the tank might explode, that little pressure relief disc will break and funnel all the oil over to someplace else and keep it from getting out into the environment. Okay. I worked there for almost 5 years. And then I had the opportunity to become a junior ROTC instructor with Tulsa Public Schools. So myself and another major, we started the program at Edison High School, which turned into Edison Preparatory School in Tulsa. And I taught there for 9 years. And then I got a job offer from a school out in Reno, Nevada. And I moved out to Reno. And I taught out there until I retired from teaching. I taught for 17 years.
Okay.
So, good time. I enjoyed that.
You moved back to Tulsa.
Then we moved back to Tulsa.
Yeah.
And when I moved back to Tulsa, I don't do nothing.
Did you join the Army again?
Heck yeah, in a heartbeat, sure.
I'd like to do a word association. I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction.
Okay.
The first one is basic training.
Challenging.
AIT.
Interesting.
Jump school.
Fun.
173rd Airborne.
Combat.
Firefight.
Firefight. Dangerous. Yeah.
81 millimeter mortar.
Middle-sized boom. 60 is a little boom and a 4 deuce is a big boom.
Vietnam.
Interesting. Yeah.
Why were we in Vietnam? Well,
what we were told while we were in Vietnam was to keep the dominoes from falling. In retrospect, I think maybe we were in Vietnam because somebody was making money off of why we were there. Of course, I didn't learn that until several years later. You know, I thought we were in Vietnam waving the flag for God and country. And to a certain extent, we were. I don't think anybody that went to Vietnam willingly went over there thinking otherwise. I think we went over there for very patriotic reasons, and that we were protecting the country from harm, et cetera, et cetera. In retrospect, that might have not been the case.
Ho Chi Minh.
Never met the gentleman. Heard a lot about him, but no, he was just another bad guy as far as I was concerned.
Lyndon Johnson.
You know, LBJ was just a good old boy from Texas that probably fell into a mess of crap that he didn't really have a clue what he was getting into. He tried his best. I don't have anything against him, but he was really out of his element.
Richard Nixon.
Tricky Dick. Nixon was, well, he got caught doing something he shouldn't ought to have been doing, but I didn't have a problem with him because he got us out of Vietnam semi-honorably. And to be real honest, I wasn't in the United States while he was pretty much in office, so, you know, he didn't bother me any. He was just the president.
How do you want to be remembered?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. A guy that did what he needed to do, a guy that took care of his family, patriot. I've always tried to do the right thing. I made the comment the other day that one of the guys that I'm a friend with on Facebook is a few years older than me, and he made the comment about a lot of our contemporaries are dying, and I said, well, Slurp, that was his nickname. I said, Slurp, you got to remember that only the good die young. I said, we all got enough evil in us that'll keep us alive for a little while. So, but I don't know. I've always said, I'd like people to remember he as a character. But, you know, good. Here we go again. I thought I'd turn that off. I thought I'd be remembered as a good husband, a good father, good grandfather, and now a good great-grandfather. So, yeah, that's it.
Sir, this is an excellent interview.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Well, I appreciate the offer, and I'm glad I could help you out.
And again, this is February 3rd, 2020. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with George Tabor in Ramona, Oklahoma.
Hooah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.